pjnet.tv, 9 o'clock on the Eastern Coast, and we have Bumper running. We have the recording on. We are streaming on all platforms. We have Norma Gale in the green room, and we have a chat room waiting. So we will switch to Studio 8 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, good evening and welcome to pjnet.tv. I am so glad to be here with all of my teeth. This will not be the case tomorrow evening. I will be -1. This one way back here on the top. So my face may be swollen out to here. I'll be well medicated with oxycodone or hydrocodone. And anyway, folks, it's always great to have everybody here at pjnet.tv, where we provide a place right there for everyday Christians just to share their walk with Christ. What a wonderful mission. What a joy it is. Let me move this coffee cup out of the way. You know, if you can't thread the needle of a running sewing machine, you've not had enough coffee. So grab your favorite beverage and get ready, because we are about to bring on stage Norma Gale herself, who is making her very first appearance here on pjnet.tv. Norma Gale, I'm so glad to know that you have plenty of books behind you that you've already read each one, right?
Not quite, but I hope to.
How long you plan to live, Norma?
Well, my husband thinks probably there's more books than there are years.
Your husband is sounds like he might be a pretty wise fellow. He married you, so good enough. Books are your life now, but it hadn't always been that way. Formerly a nurse, right?
I was a nurse. Then I quit to raise my children and never went back, and instead led women's Bible studies for over 21 years, and then
did that pay
started
well?
Writing books. About as well as writing books.
Well, that's a word of encouragement to all of you aspiring authors out there. You might as well write. Pays about as well as doing pjnet.tv. You know, people say, is this a hobby or something? I say, it's an expensive one.
Yes.
I think scuba diving would have been cheaper. But you know, if you love something, you'll do anything for it. Right, Norma?
You will. But if you're a Christian author, chances are you're not going to get royalty checks in the mail every month.
How long have you been at this, Norma?
I should have more books, considering how long I've been at it, because my first book, Land of My Dreams, released in 2014. There was 6 years between books, because life happens.
Well,
we have families, and we have things and that interfere, and publishers change, publishing changes. So there were 6 years between books, but the sequel to the first one is now out, and I hope it won't be 6 years before the next one.
Tell us about your travels, your camper.
Well, we've only had an RV for about 2 years. So last year was our first time to do a lot of traveling, and we did quite a bit in New Mexico. We've been to Colorado a few times, and I'm from New Mexico, so that's why we do a lot there. And then we went to Missouri to see my nephew who's in school there, and made a trip through the South last October. And I don't know what we're going to do this year, what with travel restrictions and things.
Well, we'd like to have you here in the South. The South is known for its hospitality. And
Florida was one place we didn't make it to. That's a blank spot on our map, so we have to go back again so that we can make it to Florida.
Well, please come to Florida. We do not have a state income tax. One of the few. So we rely on tourists like you to come here and pay exorbitant taxes on hotel rooms, which you wouldn't need, cigarettes, tobacco, gasoline, and all the suntan lotion and things like that. So No, I have traveled to many states. I think I've been to New Mexico. We went to California when I was like 16 years old, and I'm thinking we did travel through New Mexico. What's in New Mexico that I would have? Is Albuquerque, Flagstaff?
Albuquerque, Santa Fe, which are probably the places most people would have heard of.
Are y'all the state that stops you at the state line and says, "Do you have any fruit in your?" Or, if you have any fruit, you got to get rid of it.
No, that's Arizona.
Okay, yeah, I remember that. Cause now,
We have lots of Indian pueblos, lots of turquoise jewelry. These days, we have a lot of movie studios.
okay.
That's become a new source of income in New Mexico. Cactuses, yucca, mountains, desert.
Okay.
We have a little bit of everything except water.
Well, now is New Mexico one of the states of the Four Corners?
Yes, it is.
Ah, I'd like to go to the Four Corners. Is that a place you can go visit? You know what I'm talking about, where you can put.
It is a place you can go visit. There is a place where you can stand in all 4 states at once.
Right, you can put a foot in each 2 states, and then put an arm in 2 more states. I'd like to do that.
Actually, yeah, I've never done it, and I've lived here my whole life.
Well, you ain't lived, woman. I want you to go out there and get a picture of that, put it on Facebook or something, and but there's a lot of line. Norma, you have lived a very diverse life. How many years were you a nurse?
7, not long enough. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And that was
But
as you
I
were growing
enjoyed
up.
raising my children more.
But that was your ambition growing up, right?
Yes.
To be a nurse, and
Yes, it was.
then you have to go to get all these certifications and all that. And literally, you just said, I'm just going to walk away from this to take care of kids.
I was going to go back after my kids got into school, and there was multiple reasons why my husband and I just decided that staying home with the kids would be a better choice. And so for a while, I homeschooled our son. I became a #1 soccer mom. And and through that all, I led Bible studies, which that will always be a passion of mine, and something I'll probably go back to at some point in time.
And then you got the camper. So anybody out there interested in a nice, cream puff, barely used motorhome,
it's only got 20,500 miles on the motorhome.
Yeah. Oh boy, it's like new. Okay, now so you spent this time raising children, and then around 2014 or shortly before that, have you always been a writer? I see you
Yes.
blog, but is that something you've always done, or is this something that kind of grew out of that time spending at home raising children?
No, I've always written things. I probably drove my parents crazy with my reading. I know I did. I used to get in trouble for reading the back of a cereal box at the breakfast table. And
That's
as
what
soon
we
as
all
I
did
found
back
out you
then.
could if I could write, as soon as I found out you could write down stories, I began writing down stories. I have notebooks of stories from when I was in junior high. And I remember making up stories and assigning parts to my sisters and the neighborhood kids and making them cooperate. So, yeah, that probably got me in a little bit of trouble.
Okay, so you spent a lot of years. You've got this I don't know if it's a character defect or a compulsion, whatever. You write a lot, but something, you crossed a line because you wrote things down a lot of years before you published a book. What happened? What did a light come on and say, "Hey, I got to publish one," or what happened?
It was always kind of a dream of mine, but it was something I never really actively pursued because there was always other things to take center stage. And then actually I broke my foot and ended up in a wheelchair. for 8 weeks, and reading was not quite enough to deal with the boredom. So I finally took an idea that had been in my head for a while and decided I was going to see if I had what it took to become a traditionally published author. And it took me about 3 or 4 years to get the book ready. And after my second writers' conference, I got a contract for my first book, Land of My Dreams. And then it took another 6 years because of various family things and probably some of my own fears. As you get one book published, am I good enough to get two? It took a while and 3 rewrites before I was able to get the second book published. But I hope there will be a third one in much less time.
How many rewrites did your first book get?
I totally rewrote it 3 times.
The first one?
The first one, no, but the second one. The
Yeah.
first one was on the first one only needed some editing after I got the contract.
Well, I'm not a writer, but I can only imagine that's a pretty big undertaking. So you go through that, and then you scrap it and start over, literally? 3 times?
Well, I did. I cut and pasted and saved pieces, but the gist of the story kind of changed over the rewrites. But ultimately, it became something that I was much happier and probably much closer to the story that God wanted me to write, because I think I was listening too much to other people and maybe not praying about it as much or listening to my own heart as much as I should have.
Well, I write software, Norma, and there may be some parallels. When you get an idea and you just pour yourself into it, it's a lot of work to write. Software begins as a blank sheet, and whatever it is, you have to add each piece, and you're all excited about it, and you come out with version 1, and the excitement is just way up here. It must be like giving birth. Okay, I mean, it's just wow. Then you get it out there a little bit, and you find out, that this software has a few defects.
Yeah,
So,
that's not the way it goes.
yeah. Then version 2 comes along. It is a substantial improvement. You have versions 1 dot this, 1 dot that, and then at some point you quit trying to fix it and say, I'm going to just write a new one to replace the old one. Version 2, but let me tell you this: when you get to version 3, yeah, that's the one. So it usually takes that's sort of the gestation and the life cycle of software, and after version 3, you're just adding a little anyway. So I guess I am a writer. I write software. It doesn't take a lot of imagination.
I think I'll stick with fiction.
That's a deal, Norma. You stick with fiction, and I'll stick to software. We'll do that. Let's see. Let me check time. Let's talk about this. This was your first work, Land of My Dreams. Now, your name at the bottom of the book says Norma Gale.
Yes.
Is there a story there?
There's a story there. My nephew actually picked my pen name. I was named for 2 aunts. So I've been Norma Gale all of my life, and I was trying to fit. I have 2 very long last names. My maiden name was Thurston, so that's really long. My married name is Holtman, so that's really long. They don't exactly, it's a mouthful if you try to put the 2 of them together. So I was sort of trying to figure out what would look best on the front of a book after I got my contract. And my youngest nephew said, Auntie, why don't you just use Norma Gale? It's really simple. Mm-hmm. So, sometimes out of the mouths of babes, that's what I stuck with.
Well, Norma Gale, in the South, it's not uncommon to have 2 names, especially female.
No, it's not.
Yeah. But I'm convinced that outside of the exceptions, the reason we have a middle name is so that we would know when our parents are really, really, really angry at us, because they will refer to our middle name. Land of My Dreams, what's the storyline?
Land of My Dreams is about a broken-hearted college professor who flees a broken engagement and takes a teaching position in Scotland at a purely fictitious Christian college, and meets a Scottish sheep farmer and falls in love. And how God works to heal both of them from hurts they've had in the past.
So you picked Scotland. You could have picked France. You could have picked Belgium. You could have picked Switzerland.
I could have picked New Mexico that I knew something about.
Why Scotland? I mean, just arbitrary, literally?
It wasn't totally arbitrary, actually, and Land of My Dreams is more than just the title of the book. I had always been really interested in Scotland, and the idea for the book came from a dream that I kept having over and over again. Around the time of our 30th wedding anniversary in 2006, when we planned and took a trip to Scotland. And I dreamed about a man wearing a kilt standing on, I turned my computer around, sorry about that. I talk with my hands sometimes. I dreamed about a man wearing a kilt, playing his bagpipes on a hillside covered with sheep, and that was where the idea for the book came from.
I've never been to Scotland. I've been
to
England.
It was fascinating. I would love to go back.
Oh, we had to go, right? I mean, it's a business expense. Yeah. You had to research.
No, that was where the idea happened. So no business expense. And believe me, if I was waiting for the books to pay it back, I'd be waiting a long time.
You'd have to write another book to sustain. So.
Christian fiction authors, except for a select few, don't make a lot of money.
Okay, well, I don't want to run out of time. You've got one that's just hot off the presses, so to speak.
Yes, it released on May 19th. Within Golden Bands is the sequel to Land of My Dreams. And it is the story of my college professor and her sheep farmer as they move into a new phase of their lives. And rather than being strictly romance, Within Golden Bands is romantic suspense. Because believe it or not, it can't be a romance once someone is married. There's something wrong with that idea.
What you just said a lot. I don't want to go there. Once you get married, the romance is over. I'll tell you right now.
I said there's something wrong with that concept.
Your blog today was kind of interesting.
The one about my daughter's statement on race. As a kindergartner, all I ever needed to know about life, I learned from a kindergartner. Yeah, I had 2 very precocious adopted children. Both of our children are adopted. And do you want me to really quickly tell what you're thinking of about the blog?
Yeah, we got a couple of minutes.
I drove 5 little girls, kindergarten girls, on a field trip, and we were the first ones to arrive, and it was hot and there was a shady sidewalk. And so I let the girls out to play and get rid of all their giggles before the field trip started. And there was 5 little girls skipping up and down the sidewalk holding hands. There was a little black girl, a little Hispanic girl, a little Native American girl, my daughter who has brown hair and green eyes, and a little girl with white blonde hair and blue eyes. So we kind of had the whole spectrum there. And one of them said, we could all be sisters, and maybe someone will think your mom is our mom. And one of them said, we could not be sisters because so-and-so is black and so-and-so is Indian. And my little girl piped up and she says, we could too be sisters. We could all be adopted.
Now, what gave her that wisdom?
I think the fact that during that period of time, one of the other hats that I wore was the head of the Adoptive Parent Association for the adoption agency where we adopted her through. And we spent so much time there and dealing with adoptive parents that my kids thought it was a paid job. I've had lots of jobs that were not paid jobs, and that was another one. And so they were around a variety of families. but it seems appropriate for the times we're in.
It does. And, sometimes we think that we are teaching our children, and at times they are teaching us. And
Yes.
that's a very sweet thought. Folks, you can find that story and more at normagale.com. And if while you're there, browse around and check out anything on that website that you would direct their attention to, other than the buy the book link or something like that.
There's a lot more blogs and devotionals than there are things about the books, actually.
Good. That's good. Well, Norma Gale, it's a pleasure and always good to hear. It sounds like you have devoted. You gave up, actually. Did you think about it at the time that you're giving up a rather, I don't know if lucrative is the right answer, but a very professionally rewarding career? You turned your back on that and devoted it to family and to fiction. Any regrets?
Well, I didn't know fiction would be in the picture, but when you have waited years for a child and you get the opportunity to adopt a newborn, you don't give any thought to what you're giving up. You just want that child in your arms that you've waited for so long for. And it was the wait for our first child, from when we started thinking about having children to when we actually adopted him, was 4 years. So I tell people it was like being pregnant for 4 years. I waited that long.
Norma Gale, you're all class. You're all heart. You might want to try Montana. You've got a heart as big as the Montana sky, and it's great to hear your stories. And
you wouldn't have any trouble convincing me of that one, because I love Montana. We've spent a lot of time there. I had relatives there.
I want to go there. I've always heard. So, well, thanks for sharing with us, Norma, and best of luck in your new book. And everybody go to normagale.com to read the blogs and find out more. Hey, thanks for sharing tonight, Norma.
Thank you, Mark.
Norma Gale Holtman here on pjnet.tv. Folks, as good as that was, we are not about to quit or stop there. In just a few moments, we will have Amanda Flynn, who is standing in for Michelle Medlock Adams this week. She'll be here any minute. I've got to get some work done to get ready for her. So on my way out, I asked 2 questions. The first one, what is the boldest thing you have ever done for Jesus Christ? And the second one, when was that? Our challenge is to never be satisfied with either answer.